All right, let's dive right into this explainer and uncover the secrets of the Kushan Empire. We're going to explore a state that was, well, basically the glue of the ancient world. From roughly the 1st to the 4th century CE, this empire sat right at the literal crossroads of Eurasia. And what they did was brilliantly blend cultures, religions, and economies in a way that, honestly, very few other civilizations ever have.
So right off the bat, we're faced with this absolutely fascinating paradox. How could a superpower, one that connected the Roman Mediterranean, Parthian Iran, Han China, and the Indian heartland, leave absolutely no continuous native historical chronicle? I mean, think about that for a second. Unlike Rome or China, the Kushans didn't write their own long-form history books for us to find later. They were this massive, wildly wealthy empire, and yet they kind of became a historical ghost.
Section 1. The Elusive Ghost Empire. Because they didn't leave us their own history books, modern historians basically have to play detective. We have to rely on a massive, multilingual patchwork of physical evidence scattered across Central and South Asia. We're talking about things like fragmentary Chinese dynastic annals, Indian inscriptions using Brahmi and Kharosthi scripts, and Bactrian documents that are uniquely written in a Greek-derived script. It's wild. Add to that the silent testimony of monumental religious art, massive stupas, and these huge hordes of Kushan coinage found all over the region. It's like putting together a giant, multilingual jigsaw puzzle.
Part 2. From Nomads to Kings.
Okay, get this. The Kushans didn't start out in some grand palace. They actually started as displaced wanderers on the steppe. The Yuezhi, who were the ancestors of the Kushans, were driven from their pasture lands in northwestern China by a rival confederation back in the 2nd century BCE. Defeated, they were pushed west, then pushed south, until they finally settled in the incredibly fertile, agriculturally rich region of Bactria. It's this stunning historical pivot, right? They transformed from displaced, pastoral refugees into the absolute ruling elite of a settled, heavily Hellenized region.
And in just a few generations, these former nomads built a legitimate empire. It kicks off in the mid-1st century CE with Kujula Kadphises uniting the tribes. Then his successor, Vima Kadphises, introduces standardized gold coinage specifically to trade with the Romans. The empire hits its absolute peak around 127 CE with Kanishka the Great. But by the time we reach rulers like Huvishka and Vasudeva I in the late 2nd century, you can see the empire's center of gravity is totally shifted. They had moved way beyond their Central Asian steppe roots and completely woven themselves into the cultural fabric of the Indian subcontinent.
Part 3. Apogee under Kanishka the Great.
For the longest time, the exact boundaries of Kanishka's rule were a complete mystery. But then, in the 1990s, we get a massive breakthrough with the discovery of the Rabatek inscription in Afghanistan. It's a Bactrian language text written in Greek script, which perfectly highlights their blended culture. It lists out cities, proving that Kanishka's authority reached incredibly deep into the Indian Gangetic Plain. He was essentially acting as the big boss over a vast network of local rulers. This single incredible artifact totally reshaped our understanding of just how vast the Kushan Empire really was.
Which brings us to Part 4. The ultimate cultural synthesis.
If you want to understand the true genius of the Kushans, it really comes down to one concept: syncretism. That's the amalgamation of different religions, cultures, or schools of thought. The Kushans didn't just passively tolerate the Greeks, Iranians, Indians, and nomads who lived within their borders. No, they actively blended all these beliefs together as a highly effective, deliberate political strategy to govern their incredibly diverse realm. And you can literally see this strategy right on their money. Think of it as numismatic diplomacy, using everyday currency as a giant political billboard. King Kanishka minted coins featuring the Iranian solar deity Mithra, the wind god Oado, and the goddess Nana, right alongside the Indian god Shiva. He even minted some of the very earliest anthropomorphic images of the Buddha. He wasn't trying to force a single state religion down anyone's throat. He was speaking directly to his diverse subjects in their own visual and religious languages. It's brilliant. This brilliant cultural synthesis extended way beyond coins, straight into monumental art. Kushan wealth from the Silk Road essentially bankrolled two entirely different, simultaneous artistic revolutions that gave us the foundational images of the Buddha. Take the Gandhara school in the Northwest, for example. It created this stunning Greco-Buddhist fusion. The Buddha is carved in schist, with wavy hair, Apollinean facial features, and the naturalistic draped garments you'd expect on a Hellenistic statue. But then, at the exact same time, you have the Mathura school in the Indian heartland. Carved in spotted red sandstone, this style is deeply rooted in indigenous Indian traditions. It presents a robust Buddha with broad shoulders, clinging robes, and a shaved head. Both of these iconic styles thrived simultaneously under Kushan rule.
But here's the real kicker. Even while they were funding all this deeply Indian and Hellenistic art, the Kushan kings never forgot who they were. There is a famous headless statue of Kanishka produced right in the heart of Mathura, and it depicts the great king not in local Indian garb, but wearing heavy nomadic riding boots and a thick coat. It's a really powerful, deliberate nod to their Central Asian steppe origins, planted right in the middle of a settled, urban Indian center.
So how on earth did they afford all of this? Well, the Bagram hoard tells the whole story. This staggering collection, found sealed up in the storerooms of a single Kushan city, contained pristine Roman glassware, intricate Chinese lacquerware, and beautifully carved Indian ivory. The Kushan were essentially antiquity's ultimate toll booth. By controlling the transit of high-value goods right astride the Silk Road, they became wildly wealthy middlemen.
Part 5. Twilight and Enduring Legacy.
Of course, no golden age lasts forever, right? The empire ultimately fell due to a mix of internal fragility and massive external pressure. In 224 CE, the highly aggressive Sassanid dynasty rose up in Iran, eventually conquering the Kushan heartland of Bactria. Meanwhile, the expanding Gupta dynasty started absorbing their eastern territories in India. The Kushan's decentralized administrative structure was great for managing diversity, sure, but it proved way too fragile to survive being squeezed from both sides like that. Finally, by the 5th century, the nomadic Hephthalite Huns swept through and wiped out the very last political vestiges of the state.
But wait, the story definitely doesn't end with their political collapse. And this is the ultimate takeaway for us today. While the empire physically shattered, its cultural exports survived and thrived. The Kushans used their unimaginable wealth and Silk Road control to transform Buddhism from a regional South Asian tradition into a truly trans-Asian religion. Monks, sacred texts, and those newly standardized images of the Buddha traveled the exact same trade routes the Kushans had secured, spreading deep into Central Asia, China, and eventually all the way to Korea and Japan.
So, I'll leave you with a final thought to ponder. Is a state's success really just defined by how long it can hold its borders on a map? Or is it measured by the art, the ideas, and the profound cultural synthesis it leaves behind? The ghost empire of the Kushans, a people who vanished from the map and left zero history books of their own, proves that sometimes history's greatest victors are the cultures that manage to outlive their conquerors. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and always keep questioning the history you think you know.